Hi, I'm Paul Eger, Vice President of Governmental Affairs for the Minnesota Realtors.
And I'm Ryan Hamilton, Associate Legal Counsel for the Minnesota Realtors.
Welcome to this week's legislative update. There was a lot of action on a number of fronts. I'm going to cover a couple of issues, and then I'm going to turn it over to Ryan for some additional updates. But on our residential PACE consumer protections bill, we had more committee hearings on that bill this week, and it's now on the floor in both the Senate and the House. That bill has made it through a total of 10 committees between House committees and Senate committees, which is the most committees I've ever gone through with a single bill. So there's been a lot of work done on that. And the action has also started to shift to the tax issue, which the session started with taxes, and then it was a little bit dormant for a while, and now the tax debate is starting to heat up. Both the Senate and the House had hearings on the governor's tax proposal, and I provided some testimony on both sides on our issues of concern and things that we like in the governor's bill. The governor does preserve the home ownership tax benefits that were in the Minnesota tax code prior to the federal bill being passed. So, for example, the mortgage interest deduction, which was reduced at the federal level from $1 million to $750,000, the governor's bill preserves us at the $1 million point for the mortgage interest deduction. That's just one example of what the governor was trying to do on his bill, was preserve those provisions in the tax code, those tax benefits that existed prior to the federal tax bill being signed into law. There were also some items of concern, though, in the governor's tax bill. Things like the governor wants to revisit the business property tax relief that was enacted in 2017 as part of the tax bill. It was also the subject of the fighting that's been occurring between the governor and the legislature over items that he wants to revisit as part of that bill that was passed last year. In addition, the governor does not conform to the new 20% pass-through business deduction that was included in the federal bill, which does provide a tax benefit to small business owners. Many of you, as sole proprietors, as independent contractors, would benefit from that. So we did share our concern that there isn't a provision in the governor's bill that addresses that issue as well. Now I'd like to turn it over to Ryan for some additional updates.
Hi, folks. Friday, April 20 was the third deadline, and that's the finance deadline. So that's the deadline by which committees with finance jurisdiction must complete their bills. Over the past several years, that has really amounted to omnibus bills. And so this past week, the process has been finance committees have been rolling out their omnibus budget bills. A lot of those bills contain policy provisions, which has been a controversial topic, especially with the governor. And what that process looks like is basically marathon hearings, because as we've talked about before, omnibus bills are big affairs with lots of different provisions and sections. They're basically compilations of multiple bills. We actually talk about that more in our research article in May, so take a look at that. With marathon testimony and presentations on these bills, one political point of concern has been the minority has often complained that, hey, we haven't had a chance to voice our opinion and hear even more public testimony on these bills. So that's one point of tension last week. From the realtor perspective, two bills that we've been tracking and supporting, the Project Build initiative for the $1 million grant to encourage youth to enter the trades, as well as the rulemaking bill to cover housing affordability. Those two bills have wound up in the Jobs Omnibus bill, which rolled out and was heard on Friday. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.